patient is going to do radial deviation with the weight. So he's going to put the side of his forearm down on the table and make sure that his elbow and arm are up against his body as much as possible. And we're going to have our hand neutral. And what I want you to do is just bring your thumb up towards your face and not move any other part of your arm. And we're going to do that 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do ulnar deviation. So I have him lying on his side again. And what you're going to do is put your arm straight out like this. And keep your thumb down. And we're just going to bring the pinky side of your hand up towards the ceiling. And we're going to try not to move any of our other joints. Good. We're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Now we're going to do extension of the wrist. So my patient is going to put the bottom of his arm down on the table. And he's going to make sure that he keeps his arm as close to his side as possible and sit up straight. So now he's going to start with his hand right in the middle, even with his forearm, and come straight up. We're just going to try to keep our arm as level as possible without it coming up off the table. My patient is going to do wrist flexion. So he's got the back of his forearm sitting down on the table, and he's got his elbow right by his side as much as he possibly can. Now he's going to sit up straight, and he starts in the middle, and he's just going to bring his hand up towards his shoulder and back down slow. Okay, now we're going to do pronation and supination with a weight. So we're going to start in neutral with our elbow at 90 and as close to our body as possible without leaning into our elbow. So just make sure you're not leaning into your elbow. And we can start with pronation like we did before. So you're just going to put your palm down. Make sure you're not leaning into it or anything. Do it slow and controlled. Okay, we're going to do that 8 to 12 times. Now we're going to do supination, so you're going to do the exact opposite with palm towards the ceiling. And that's also 8 to 12 times. Okay, so this is going to be elbow extension. So what I want you to do is you can put one of your hands down on this bench to help stabilize you. And with the other one, you're going to make sure that when you're leaned over, your elbow is even with your body. And you're just going to extend your arm all the way back. Make sure your back is straight. Make sure you're doing that slow. And we're going to do this for 8 to 12 reps. Okay, now we are going to do flexion of the elbow. So my patient can put his arm all the way down by his side. And he can have his palm facing any direction. We can have it this way in neutral or this way. And he is going to bring that weight all the way up towards his shoulder. And all the way back down. Making sure that we're sitting up straight and keeping our elbow right beside our body the entire time for 8 to 12 reps. Okay, so now we're doing scapular protraction with a weight. So we're going to do this one laying down. So I want you to put your arm straight up with your elbow locked. And just like we did before, just push only your shoulder and your shoulder blade out and keep the rest of your body touching that bench. We're going to come down slow from that every time. We're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do retraction of his scapula. So he has a weight and he is in prone. And what he's going to do is lift his elbow backwards up towards the ceiling. And he's going to try to bring his scapula towards his spine. Go ahead and do that. And we're just making sure that we don't push our elbow out to the side. We're just going to keep it right by our bodies. And we're going to make sure we don't move our trunk one way or the other. And we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Okay, so now we're going to do scapular elevation again, but this time with a weight. So pretty much everything is the same except for we're holding a weight. So just make sure you're standing up tall with your shoulder blades back a little bit. And make sure your head is pushed back just a little bit and that you're not leaning forward. And just pick your shoulder up towards your ear. And back down. Make sure you're not rotating anywhere. We're going to do this 8 to 12 times. And we're going to come back down slow every time. Now my patient is going to be doing scapular depression with a weight. So what you're going to do is just put your arm straight up like this, and you're going to push your shoulder blades straight down. So we're trying to keep our shoulder blades kind of pinched together so we're sitting up straight in the back, but we're trying not to move anything but our shoulder blade. So go ahead and do that one more time. Keep your elbow locked out. And we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Okay, now we are going to use a weight to do shoulder flexion and extension. So just like we did with the band, we're going to keep our elbow locked out, and we're going to sit up straight, keeping our shoulder blades together in the back, and we're just going to go straight up with our thumb pointed up towards the sky. Make sure you're locking your elbow out. And when you come back down, that is extension. So we're going to do this 8 to 12 times, and we're going to make sure that we're going slower on the way down. Make sure you're not arching your back backwards. Now we're going to do a hyperextension with a weight. So just like with all the other ones, we're going to keep our thumb forward, and we're going to lock our elbow out, and we're going to go slightly behind us, but we're going to stop when we see any type of rotation happening at our shoulder or our trunk. Level your weight out. Make sure you're not going off to the side. Keep it straight back. Okay, and we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do shoulder abduction and adduction. So with this, we are just going straight across from our body and all the way up. So my patient is going to have his thumb pointed towards his head through this entire motion. So go ahead and make sure you're sitting up straight with your shoulder blades kind of together, and just start going up towards the ceiling. And this is the abduction part. And now if you go straight back down, that is adduction. And we're going to do both directions 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do elevation and scaption. So what I want you to do is just stick your arm straight out on this side. And then we're going to come forward about 30 degrees. So whenever you come back up to do that exercise, stay just a little bit more forward than when you were right by your side. Okay, and we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do external rotation with a weight. So we have him on his side, and he's going to keep his arm and his elbow right beside his body. And we're going to keep our elbow flexed halfway. And with our thumb pointing up, we're just going to move up from our body. Go ahead and do that. And just make sure you're keeping your elbow as close to your body as possible. We're going to do that 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do internal rotation. So he is laying on the side that we are working on, and his elbow is flexed to 90 degrees. And he's going to keep his hand with the palm up, and he's just going to bring his arm up across his body towards the ceiling. We're going to try to keep our elbow as close to 90, perpendicular to the floor as possible. And we're just going to come back down slow every time and do that 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do horizontal abduction. So what he's doing is laying in prone, and throughout this entire thing, we're going to try to keep our back straight. We're not going to rotate or flex our trunk at all. So what I want you to do is bring your arm up even with your shoulder. This way. And what he's going to do is just bring his arm straight up towards the sky, and then back down. And we're just going to make sure we stay even with our shoulder the entire time, and we don't come up more or down more. Now we're going to have my patient do horizontal adduction with a weight. So he is going to bring his arm up halfway and then flex his elbow. And he's going to have his thumb towards his body. And he's just going to keep this position with his arms and bring his arm across his chest. Good. And we're going to make sure that we stay halfway up the whole time, back and forth, making sure to go slow, coming back down.